Welcome back. I've got Rusty on my lap for the rest of the afternoon.
You say
little hot water bottle.
give him 10 minutes.
No,
Where are we at?
on the page.
Oh, there he is. He just met a really beautiful girl in the park. She looked a bit younger than him, but he was all right with that. They're just disgusting creatures. Do horrible things. I won't tell you what actually happened, but I'm just glad he didn't lick me afterwards. Anyway, sorry, love.
Thank you. We like to start the afternoon with randomness.
Yeah.
I was saying to Dave on the on lunch break, like normally with one of these kind of events, like in person especially, but with all the other online events, I've kind of known who was coming. I've had like a list, and as people have come on, I've like ticked them off. And this time, John, Dave's dad, asked me, how many people have you got coming? And I said, I actually have no idea. It could be 10, it could be 40. Got no idea, because I don't know if it's because I haven't been receiving all my emails or whether people just didn't tell me that they were coming, but it was just, I had no idea who was going to be here. But the nicest thing is, like, this has been the most relaxed lead up, the most relaxed we've ever sort of done the advertising and those kind of things.
We say relaxed. Another word you could use is lax. Karen.
I haven't been lax.
Oh, okay.
But it's been so nice because it's just this, like Lisa was speaking earlier, this trust and faith in life, and that who was going to be here was going to be here, and it was going to be perfect. And it's been so nice to have so many different faces on here, like people I've never met before, people I've known for years, people who I know share this, local people from all around the world. And it's just been such a lovely group to sit with for these 3 days. And then Dave was like, should we have on an extra day? I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end.
I really enjoyed it.
And I was like, yeah, but some people are going to need a bit of a break.
Yeah,
that's quite true. A lot of
it's just me being selfish.
But we did say we'd love to maybe arrange a day next week or the week after for us all just to come back together, or an evening, just to see kind of what's been happening for people and what's emerged after the 3 days. So we'll email everyone if we come up with a date.
We'll figure that out.
But again, like before lunch, it was lovely hearing from different people. And I said today, like, I've loved the whole weekend, but honestly, my highlight was just sat listening to Lise. And I got so quiet afterwards and felt so grateful that she's in my life, and we've got to kind of go through this crazy last 5 years together and all be part of this family. We've just had some of the most beautiful conversations with one another, and some of our observations of life have just taken me in whole other directions I'd never thought of before, and opened my mind in ways. And I don't know, it's not that often in my life that I have people where I feel like I'm 100% myself. There's like literally no trying to be something else, and we have that, and it's really special. So thank you. It really has been my highlight of the 3 days. I've loved all of it, but that was just really special.
Thanks, Jen. It's such a pleasure having you in life. And you, Dave.
Yeah.
We said in lockdown, we've been so grateful that we all live together. Like the amount of people we've spoken to who haven't been able to see family, where we all got to be together. And like one evening we all sat outside Lisa's caravan and we had a fire and we couldn't hear the road, which was
first time in history.
Yeah, like
unless it had snowed to the point where vehicles couldn't move.
And we all just sat around having curry and watching this fire. And then Lisa's got this stuff, like magic fire or something. You throw it on and it makes all of the different colours come out of the flames. And we just experienced so many special, simple moments. And we've been so grateful. And I know it hasn't been like that for everyone, but for us, we have had this really special time. I feel like, a bit like what Jackie was saying before, these kind of events are so nice because you start to realise it can often feel like, wow, it was perfect for me. Like what was spoken about resonated with me and it was what I needed. And it's because that sameness, like we've all got our own versions of whatever's going on, but it's it's the same misunderstanding that kind of gets us caught up, and it's the same understanding that brings us back. And I think that's why we see like that unity and that sameness. And I've loved everything people have shared and how honest people have been and just opened up to us and the group. So we thought this would be a nice opportunity for people to share and ask questions and tell us if they've got reflections or observations, anything really. Anything you wanted to?
I was just going to say that during lunchtime, you and I were having a chat, and one of the things I realised within life is that people are amazing. We're all amazing. And from insight breeds insight, if I can put it like that. And there is no sort of, oh, I should have said this, or there is none of that, because as it shows throughout this weekend, that things apply to us. We might prattle on, but it's life living through us, bringing information, and we're all here to receive and hear and share. And when Jesus had his insight, and when Buddha had his insight, and when Sydney Banks had his insight, we are all that person. We are all that. But it opens doors for all of us. When people share, it opens doors within us that we might have had tight shut through feeling embarrassed about it or whatever. And you really realise how ordinary life, the ordinary nature of life, when we all get together on events like this and share stuff. That's beautiful.
Cheers, Lou. We got a question on the chat. It's about self-acceptance. And there's a I don't know if this is a private thing. Is it a private one? It's private, is it? Yeah, private. So there's an issue that the individual's speaking about. Can we talk a bit about self-acceptance? Well, first, I think we need to have a look at both of those words. What does each one mean? Self, me. Acceptance, what is acceptance? Acceptance is just seeing the world as it sits, without judgment. So what is the thing that takes us away from self-acceptance? It has to be judgment, our thoughts. It's the only thing that a lack of self-acceptance is when we have judgmental beliefs about ourselves. That's all it is. It's not even a big thing, isn't lack of self-acceptance. It's not a big hurdle to get over, no self-acceptance. When you really boil it down to its essence, I have a lot of thinking about myself. In its truest sense, it doesn't even exist. It's all part of the illusion of life, that we're not already perfect. Lise said something. I wrote it down. This creator that creates creation, it doesn't make mistakes. Look around. Is there really a mistake anywhere? Can you possibly see a mistake that exists anywhere in the physical world that isn't a judgment cast upon it by our own mind? this physical existence is a unique expression in every single moment. Even the cells in our bodies, as we were saying over the last couple of days, they're not the same cells we had a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. They're not the same cells we had last year. Your physical body has entirely regenerated itself. From what? It's marvelous. It's a miracle. You are divine mystery. Yet here we are. Self-acceptance, struggling with self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is a story of I am not okay, I am not all right, I am not worthy, I am not good enough. All this bullshit. Bullshit. Stories. Because in actual fact, everything is ultimately perfect, even down to the ice caps melting. It cannot be any other way. The earth cannot be in any other state other than what it is now, given the way that the consciousness, the spiritual, has manifest itself. There is no separation. There is no separation from the whole, and the whole has to be perfect because the whole is singular. And perfect or imperfect is a judgment cast, which has to be a duality. The duality of right and wrong, good and bad, perfect or imperfect. All concepts within our minds. You know, and we don't even need these concepts to disappear. We're not telling anybody how to think. Stuff that I don't want to tell anybody how to think. Hell, if I ran the world, it'd be a seriously lazy place. I'm so thankful that people don't think like I do. I'm so thankful that there is this infinite amount of thought, created experience and ideas put into the world by such fantastic people. And I'm even thankful for the contrast. The darker, what we would like to call the darker side of thought, where people acting from greed and stuff like that. Because it's from that do people get to wake up, start to find the beauty and magic, and have the contrast in life to really appreciate it. No, I do. I really appreciate my darkness. Blessed is he who has suffered and found life. That's in the Bible. Yeah, blessed is they who have suffered and found life. You know, it's one of our biggest problems is we take ourselves so seriously.
I think one of the things I was going to say is, well, like someone's asked, is, you know, self-acceptance, is that the same as self-worth? And one of the things that occurred to me is, like, I know I used to say I had low self-esteem. Like, I had low self-esteem. I was low self-esteem, as if that was a thing that I had. And it could be the same with I don't have self-worth, like it's a thing that we think that we do or don't have. And I remember, I often say it was like an unraveling. That first course was like an unraveling, because I realized there's no such thing as low self-esteem. It's thought. Acceptance, non-acceptance is thought. Feeling like we have worth or we don't have worth is thought. It's different flavors of the same energy. But we've kind of created these things as things that we either want or things that we don't want, as if they have some form other than the momentary nature that they come in. And
the amount of intention and power that we give each one.
But it's almost like I could see that I had gone, I have depression, I am anxious, I have low self-esteem, I have an eating disorder. And like I remember you pointing out, like even in that language, you're saying that it's something that we have, it's not something that we are. And so the idea of having low like not having self-worth or not having acceptance. It's a momentary experience. Like, I know, like growing up with eating disorders and the different things that I had, and so much focus on physical. At 25, I broke my nose a couple of times when I was younger, and at 25 I got to have an operation to fix one side because I had breathing problems from it. And so for about 2.5 months I had bruising. Like, it took a really long time to go down, and I realized how much my worth I put on, like, my appearance and needing to look right, because I couldn't just hide for 2.5 months. I had to get on and do things. And it was amazing the amount of times that I'd go out and actually have completely forgotten I had bruises all over my face. And then I'd bump into someone and I'd be like, oh my God, are you all right? Have you been in a car crash? And I was like, oh no, I've got bruising from having my nose realigned. But you could see, like, the physical form was still there, but when my mind wasn't on it, it didn't bother me. And it was such a brilliant teaching for me, because I was like, wow, I put so much of my value as a human being on looking right, on being right, on physically looking how I need to. And that's been like this ongoing thing. And I know that probably the second time I went out to India, I went to this incredible camel festival in Pushkar, and I had the most amazing time there. And then I was probably there for 2 weeks before moving on. There was a guy in the street that I used to watch from this sort of rooftop restaurant who had no arms. And he used to walk around and, like, chat with people. He would crack jokes. He would do all kinds of tricks. And I watched him, and I sat in so much judgment of myself for all of the times I wanted to be thinner, or I'd wanted to be better looking, or I'd wanted to have more this, and I just sat in so much judgment and sadness. And I kind of wanted to go and connect with this guy, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I always, for the rest of that trip, he'd come to mind. But actually, when I look back now, he was laughing, joking, connecting. Like, he was living. He was fully engaged and living. And I was kind of almost pitying him and thinking, oh God, I can't imagine not having arms. Like, how does he? And I was like, how does he even do anything? Like, how is he cared for? He seems to live on the street. But he just lived. And it was me getting stuck in my judgment that I should be more grateful, that stopped me going to speak to this guy. And it's like Lisa said, how many times have I missed experience because I get so stuck in what I think, in my judgment, in my belief, in my ideas. And we're going to do that throughout life, but the moments when we do just step out of it or see it for what it is, you get to have these connections with people. And a bit like you said in Nepal, like the amount of people we met who you'd think, God, everything you've been through, surely you're going to be struggling or suffering or not feel good enough. But we were just faced with these, so much spirit and love and joy and generosity.
I suppose it's almost like when I was younger and I used to watch, what's the thing where Comic Relief, you know, and in the UK we have this thing called Comic Relief, which is like a big charity event where all the comedians come together to raise money for third world countries for these poor people. And then it would have a cutaway to go into a village in the middle of Namibia or something, to these poor people. You know, they don't have shops, they don't have schools, they don't have toilets. What they did have was, I remember it being such a kind of, what the hell? They had these kids that beamed happiness and joy. And I remember it being like, those kids look happier. I remember being a kid and watching this and thinking to myself, those kids are happier than any kids I know. Why are we trying to save these people? They're all right. I think they're all right. Perhaps it's us in our Western lostness that's just disconnected ourselves from spirit. That's all we've done. In
And you can't disconnect yourself from spirit. You can just forget it. That's the only thing. But just what Lisa said this morning about creation, in this creation, there are no mistakes. You are not a mistake. Nobody's a mistake. There are no mistakes. There just is what it is. Showing up how it's showing up. And this is what acceptance is. It's like when people see that, when people just view the world or themselves without judgment, acceptance is instantaneous. And acceptance is the healing beginning. That is the beginning of healing right there. The moment we accept, what happens if two cultures suddenly accept one another? What's the consequences? In South Africa, I remember being with you, and in this same soup kitchen, we met met the big fella with the black eyes. I remember coming out of there, and our friend, who was a very, very wealthy Jewish lady, she said, "The problem's too big in South Africa." She was completely head gone, like, "Oh, look at all these homeless people. What the hell are we going to do? The problem's too big." Jen and I looked at each other and were like, no, it's not. The problem that faces South Africa it's not big. It's minuscule. We said, yeah, look, it looks big. The problem between the division between black, white, coloured is not a racist term out there. It's just a description. Yeah, it's Cape Coloured. They call themselves coloured. I've been told off for saying coloured. It's not a derogatory term. It's what they actually describe themselves as. And I'm not going to do them injustice of calling them another name for our political correctness. And then you've got the fighting between the different black ethnicities that take place. The problem's too big. No, it isn't. The problem's big if we look at it insofar as where we're going to house these people. We need to have equal houses. Everybody needs to be housed equally. Everybody needs to have equal access to work, equal access to sanitation. Everybody has to have equal access to X, Y, Z. When we start looking in the world of form, wow, it looks complicated. And that's where we keep on looking. We keep on being bamboozled by the form, thinking that the form is where the answer lies. And we said, no, look, the problem isn't too big. The problem that South Africa faces is everybody carries around beliefs about each other. The moment the South Africans start to think differently about one another, the rest will take care of itself.
I think even being at that soup kitchen was this girl Kerry had this big insight about 10 years ago now, and she just realized something about life. She realized something about the oneness of life, and she said, I want to do something. So she started making this huge thing of soup and serving it from her car to people on Sundays, and then from that it grew, and she got volunteers and she got people donating to the point where she was doing these big events every month where people would come in, they'd get haircuts, they'd get bags of like toiletries, she'd feed everyone, they'd have music, they'd connect and
have showers and cut their hair.
Like at the end of the event, people stood up to just say, all of this is great, but the main thing is Kerry loves us. It's like she's just one person that had an insight and decided to do something, and she's now a registered charity out in South Africa. It's getting bigger, the events are getting bigger. And I think whether it is that we have an insight and do something like that, or it's just that we find more peace of mind within our own life, like it doesn't have to look a certain way, but the change that she's experienced has impacted everyone around her. And it can be like on a small scale or a grand scale. But she said it was just like it wasn't like a good idea, it was just what she should do. She just did it. And it all has just unfolded from there.
Yeah, you see that this is as applicable to as a nation, to a country, as it is to an individual. It all starts with thought. There is no escaping this fact. It's the only fact that we really need to become aware of is that everything that we create as a people and everything we create as an individual is all born of thought. And I think there's this real misunderstanding within society and the mainstream, you might want to call it, whereby that's not normal. I'm not normal. You're not normal. They're not normal. You take a look around at the world. Tell me if you can see two people who are identical. Even identical twins are not identical. You've got 7.7 billion human realities on the face of planet Earth. Whose reality is normal? What is normal? Is there such a thing as normal? No, these are just abstract concepts that we measure ourselves up against. My ex-wife's baby, it's not a normal weight. Yet he's perfect. My friend Kirsten's baby is not a normal weight. It's underweight. It's not normal for that age group. It's not normal. No, because it's an individual. It's healthy. She's beautiful. She's fine. We keep on trying to find a mean value, and we work so much in mathematics now. We're so lost in our intellect that we keep on looking for a mean value of everything that we can measure everything against and say, oh yeah, that's too much like that, that's too little like that. There is no room in that for ourselves just to be ourselves, because we're so lost in concepts of what's right and wrong, what's permissible and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And these are all thoughts, lost in thoughts, missing the point. Everybody and everything is totally perfect when you take away any judgment. There just is what is. Everybody just is what is. It doesn't mean the future can't be different. The future absolutely will be different. I've got no idea what it'll look like.
Dave, do you remember me telling you about my realization of the momentary nature of life when I was talking about type 2 fun? About when, just like to what you're talking about there, I remember when it wasn't even that long ago, I was doing a mountain leadership course, and part of that course was to go off and navigate when the weather was really bad. So I got up at 6 o'clock one morning and drove up into the lakes, and it was pouring down with rain, and just like a bit like today, where it was just like pea soup everywhere, mist everywhere. And I set off and went to a place called Bowfell and Crinkle Crags up the Langdale Valley. And it was dark when I set off at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was dark. And it was to practice navigation. And I got up there, and it was cold, and it was wet, and it was absolutely gale force winds, that invisible energy blowing me over. You know, when you're watching everything move, and you're like, you know, what is this? What is this energy that is pushing me over right now? And I remember enduring this weather, being really pissed off because I got completely lost and was trying to use my map and compass to get me out of the situation I was in. In the end, I had to get my phone to locate my position. I was on my own. All I wanted to do was not be there. I just could not wait to get off this mountain. It was horrendous. Got back to the car, pretty hypothermic, got home and went, fucking hell, I've just had the best morning. And I sat there and went, that's not true. Yeah, it is. I've just had, honestly, the best. I can't believe what a brilliant morning I've just had. And I thought, that's not true. The truth was, I had a miserable morning and I couldn't wait to get home. But in that moment, it brought me something completely different. And then that made me think that life truly is a momentary unfolding. We really do just experience the moment. It wasn't true. I'd had a miserable morning. I couldn't wait to get home. I was cold, I was wet, and I was actually scared because I didn't know where I was. But the thought in the moment was that was brilliant. And if anybody asked me about it now, I'd say it was brilliant. Man, I learned a lot from that moment of realization and how we can look at the past in the moment and completely change it. completely flip it from what it was.
Thanks.
And that makes me question where does the truth lie within it all? It just is a moment of creation in the moment, isn't it?
Thanks, Lise. To the person who wrote that question, did that kind of in any way speak to, you can type back and just say yes or no. Thank you, love. Is there any more questions? Does anybody want comments or anything anybody wants to say?
Oh. Hi, can I say something? Dave?
Yep.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, 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 yes.
Just one thing. I had one of the biggest realizations I have is how I'm made of every element of the universe. Made the same way as the stars and everything else in the universe. And the thing about that is I'm never going to die, because there's always going to be some components left of me on this universe to be recycled into something else. Because we come into form from nothing and we go to nothing, and the form moves into something else. So we're always going to be here in some way, some form. And at my tender age, you know, I'm nearer to going under the ground than I was a few years ago. I find a great comfort in that. And I find a big peace in understanding that I am part of this great big thing, and I'm so tiny and so insignificant. And I love being tiny and insignificant, because who cares? I don't have to care about anything. It all comes and it all goes. And I love that.
Thanks, Mum. Thanks, Mum. Sash, did somebody just put a gun up to you, love?
You went quiet for a second, that's all. But I would say something if nobody else has got something to say. Is that all right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think, okay, you're right. Yeah, something it took me a long time to realize, even when I'd been around this sort of understanding and I'd done all sorts of work on myself for ages, was not just that. I think I quite soonish had the realization that my feelings were okay no matter what they were. Not all the time, I couldn't always see it, but I sort of had that insight quite early on. But what I didn't see for a long time was that my current level of understanding, whatever that was at the time, was also okay. So for example, I think, and I know because I do coaching too, and I hear this a lot from people, but we have this idea that there is, Jen and Dave know more than I do, Michael Neal knows more than I do, somebody else knows more than I do, that somehow there are bits of this I don't understand yet, and that that's not okay somehow. Can you hear me, Dave? Yeah. So, for example, I still to this day, and I know I've told you this, Dave, I don't know what mind, thought, and consciousness are. I don't know. When you say those words, you might as well be saying giraffe, camel, elephant. I don't know. I know more about giraffes and camels and elephant than I do about mind, consciousness, and thought. And for a long time, that really bothered me. And, you know, I'd hear people talk about oneness, and I think, oh, I haven't had that. I'm getting it wrong. I'm getting it wrong. They know something I don't. I'm still, you know, almost like I saw this hierarchy of understanding with probably, I don't know, God and Buddha and Jesus at the top, and people like Michael Neal were here and Jen and Dave were here, and I was down here somewhere because I didn't understand all these terms. And at some point I've come to see that I understand way more than I ever thought I did once I took away that the notion that I had to understand these things they were talking about. It's almost like because you'd given them words, I saw them as some sort of concept that I didn't quite yet understand. And when I took away the judgment, I saw that, yeah, my understanding was perfect. It's really hard to put into words. Does this make any sense? But does that make sense to you, Dave?
Totally.
Yeah, because I said that because I know this because I speak to coaching clients a lot who think, I don't get this, I don't get this bit, I don't get what you said then. What did you mean by that? And I'll translate in another way and they say, yeah, I'm still missing this. And I think, yeah, no, you're not missing it. You're getting tied up in the words again. You think that because you don't understand. And I'm really grateful for the mind, thought, and consciousness thing, because that has shown me the fact that I still don't understand what those things mean. Shows me it just doesn't matter. It doesn't. I probably do understand them. I just don't use those terms. You know what I mean? So anyway, the fact that it's not just your current feeling that's okay, it's your level of understanding that's also perfect. No matter where it is, it's perfect.
Absolutely, Sash. This comes back to the no mistakes part. You know, the moment we stop judging ourselves, the world, right, wrong, good, bad, I should, I shouldn't, there's this instantaneous experience of peace that never has gone anywhere. It's just been shrouded in a fog of thought. That's why you can't think your way to this. You cannot think your way to acceptance. You cannot think your way to gratitude. You cannot think your way to anything. You cannot manufacture it. It's when the mind goes still, we're minding our own business, it just emerges. Sash, I do not know what mind is. I do not know what thought is. Anybody who thinks they know what thought is, we're deluding ourselves, promise. You cannot know it. You cannot. It's impossible to know. It's not that when I get to learn enough about it, I can know it. No, it's impossible to know it, because to know it is to know God. You cannot know what consciousness is. It's too big. It's too abstract. I remember when I first had a realization about it, the only way I could describe it was, it's like this. And that meant it doesn't operate in the realms of the everyday material world. It's not based in time, something we take so seriously, time, age. At my time of life, says my mother. My time of life. This idea of time that we take so seriously. What is time to the individual who's 12 years old and just about to die, compared to the 80-year-old who's still got 10 years left? Time means nothing. Time is nothing. Time's a thought. Cheryl has said, because she can't speak, because I think she's actually making a magic potion. What are you making, Cheryl? Oh,
dinner.
No, dinner. No. Just saw you with your grinding up a wing of bat and an eye of newt. There you go, look. The insight that is rattling around for me at the moment is around water being colourless, odourless and tasteless. Yet the fruit is so varied and beautiful, and I'm seeing something about how this transforms into humans and the light, love and energy that flows through, for the want of the better words, creates the variety of different humans in all the different forms, which are all beautiful in their own right, exactly as they are. That speaks so much to what Raha was saying. Beautiful.
Annette's got her hand up.
Annette, have you got your hand up, love?
I have. Oh, I don't know what to say now. I just had a conversation in the break with a colleague of mine, with someone who's into the 3 principles as well, And we were talking about this understanding, and only way I could describe my experience at the moment is, no matter what's happening in my life, there is a background hum constantly going on. And it feels like what I've come to know in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, I don't know how long, it feels like it's so embedded in me that even when I'm not seeing it, it's not there, I kind of know it's there in the background. I can just sense that hum. I can only describe it as a hum. And this weekend, just tuning in and out of having things to do, but tuning in and out of listening to us, I feel like you're my tribe. I feel like staying connected to the conversation it's like, this is my tribe. And yet, so the dilemma is actually the whole of humanity is my tribe, because we all have that human connection. We all come from the same place, and we're all going back to the same place. However, staying connected with people that understand what I'm talking about just seems to make the hum louder. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. So thank you for being my tribe, everybody.
Thank you. Excellent. Just a quick one back on that self-acceptance thing, like, just for one moment, what if those thoughts and feelings weren't actually a problem? Just for one moment, what if those thoughts and feelings... Baja, you're not driving, are you, mate? That's good. You are stopped. We put you to sleep on the motorway or something.
Yeah, no, I'm not driving. Did you ask me? So did you ask me something?
No, I was just checking. Just you sat behind the steering wheel, and I just saw you nod off.
I'm not driving.
Yeah, if just for one moment, what if, when those ideas of lack of self-acceptance were to come in, what if they were just seen for what they were? How would it look? What if they were just seen for thoughts, rather than all the meaning that we wrap around that thought? And all the packaging and all the fancy bows and wrapping paper we wrap around the thoughts, and then hand to ourselves and open it and go, oh, fucking hell, not this again. I'm sick of getting this present. What if it was just seen for what it was? What if, when the thoughts came, we just saw it all as thought? What would the world look like? You'd see it would be a neutral thing. You know, I keep saying, like, I still have all the thoughts that of violence and stuff like that. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest, I've said this numerous times, but one of the biggest learnings or realizations I had was when I was walking back from prison in Cumbria. I was walking past a primary school, and I saw these 3 little kids stood outside minding their own business without an adult. And as I walked past, I saw these 3 little kids, they're probably 4 or 5 years old, completely and utterly unsupervised. All of a sudden, what popped into my head was, I wonder what they're worth on the black market. Paul, I can see you've got a sick sense of humour, man. I've got a sick sense of humour. I laughed. I laughed in the street. I burst out laughing at my own mind. And I carried on walking, and I got in the car and I went home. And then I remember it was on the drive home where minding my own business, and this little thought came in my head and it said, wow, What a long way you've come, Dave. 2 years before that point, you were saying, you know, if you'd had that thought 2 years ago, you'd have really worried. Who does that make you? What does it mean? I'd have started wrapping it up in paper. Been putting bows on it. Going to town on it. Are you going to Google how much a child's worth? You do know if you Google it, and you do that stupid thing, they're watching you. They're watching you. Are you going to get the police coming around your door? I'd have catastrophized the whole frigging thing. I'd have had that one thought, what set off as one thought, and catastrophized it. Lived in the experience of it. But in that moment, it was seen for what it was. It was a thought. Nothing more. Didn't mean anything about me. What thought can possibly mean anything about us? I've been around 41 years. How many thoughts have I had? Which thought am I? Am I this thought or am I that thought? You see, it would stand to reason that if I'm a thought, then surely it would stand to reason that I could be a selection of thoughts. But if I'm a selection of thoughts, what about the other thoughts? Am I not that? Or is it more simple than that? Are we all the thoughts? Or are we none of them? We identify with thoughts when ultimately we are ultimately none of them. That's the ego. That's just the thoughts and ideas we've identified as our self, our character, who we think we are. It's just a ball of thoughts. I'm not worthy. It's just one of those little abstract expressions of consciousness, that's all it is. Not good enough. I'm a child trafficker. Possibly. It's just bullshit we tell ourselves. It's bullshit we identify with. We're none of that. We're the source. Everybody's the source. And when people start to wake up to the nature of thought, naturally, without effort, Lee and Lou, what did you do? Nothing. I did nothing. Naturally, these thoughts quieten down. Why? Because we know not to give them as much time, space, and energy. We just do it automatically. It's nothing to do. What we're talking about with all this, there is nothing to do, I promise. Just go and have a nice life. Just go and play. Can't get life wrong. But we all have mad thoughts. And I won't tell you my deepest, darkest thoughts. Fear of social isolation. But we all have them. Immoral, illegal. Thoughts we just wouldn't tell anybody we've actually had. Doesn't matter, the thoughts. They're possibilities within the infinite. All thoughts are a possibility within the infinite. It doesn't mean anything. They're thoughts. When we see them for what we are, we're free. True freedom lies within. It doesn't lie in the world, it lies within our being. The moment we stop identifying ourselves with what we think and placing what we think onto other people and things, the moment we start to see that it truly is all a thought-created experience. From birth till death. The dream of life. Nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to hurt. Any more questions?
Sarah.
Oh, okay. Hi. I wasn't sure. So, you know, when you're saying, you know, your personality kind of starts to disintegrate or fade away, or so you realize it's all thoughts. And I think what has been occurring to me is that we really, if it's all thought, and if none of this is me, I really have a choice who I want, how I want to show up, what I want to bring in, or which thoughts to act on or not, or any of that. And I could see how that works. You know, you start to see how you can manifest certain things if you want to, but it's not, but now I'm starting to see that it's not about, I'm speaking, you want to come? Sorry.
No, the two cats are going.
Can you close the door? Sorry, that's my thing. But so there's this idea that, okay, so, you know, you start to see the possibilities that you can use this thought in whichever ways. And then I felt like I've played around with that for a while, and I've seen that, yes, I can, you know, kind of bring things into existence. How interesting. But then at this point, you know, I'm also starting to see that it really doesn't matter what I choose and what I don't. And I suppose the question is, I'm not sure if it's a question, but I'm trying to put it into words. I'm not, it's almost like there's a part of me that wants to do something with thought. Do you know, am I making any sense? There's a part of me that wants to do something with it, like wants to use it in a certain way, or thinking that I can put things together in a certain way so that I have this kind of life. And another part is saying it really, really doesn't matter what you do with it or what you don't do with it. And somewhere in there, I mean, it's just been very interesting to watch. But somewhere in there, there's also, I get a little bit, I don't know what the word is. Maybe it's a bit of a sense of paralysis, almost. Not paralysis, that's really heavy. It's like not knowing really, am I, okay, I don't know what the question is, but I'm trying to bring the question up, but it's not like not knowing what to do with thinking, but like it's almost, you know, when you're saying how do we play around with it? It feels like, should I play around with this thing and see what else happens, you know? Because I just see that possibility. I see that too is possible. It's about it.
There are no rules, love.
We're not what?
Back to what Jen was speaking about earlier on. We're always looking for, is it this or is it that? Mm. Is it right for this way? Is it wrong that way? Okay, we'll go back to this thing. Listening to that talk with that, it's called Dr. Bruce Grayson. That's who it was. Awesome conversation he has. But he speaks about the Western way of looking at things, Aristotle, based on Aristotle's ideas that you should be able to prove something either right or wrong. And that's what we do in science, isn't it? We prove things right or wrong. And then we end up with all these anomalies. Because it doesn't fit into right or wrong, we end up with all these anomalies like placebo.
doesn't fit in. Put it to one side. Consciousness doesn't fit in. Ignore it. It isolates. Does that right or wrong? Yes, no, on, off. But in the Eastern traditions, they see things very differently. They're brought up very differently. Rather than yes, no, on, off, right, wrong, it is they work under the fourfold premise of something can be true and something can be false. So you can have true or false. But something that is true can also be false. And it can be neither. Okay, what we're talking about is life. It's mysterious. Life is mysterious because it doesn't operate in the way our intellect does. Our intellect is always a linear process. We think in time and yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong. We try and box it. We try and put it into a box. Because the moment we put it in a box, we think we know something. And we like to know something. The mind is far greater than yes or no. Is it something? Yes. Also, it's nothing. You'll never find it. But there you are using it to try and find it. You'll never find it. You'll never know what it is, yet there you are trying to thinking, experiencing it.
It goes back to that looking at kids thing, like they just learn to do all of this stuff. They're in the flow of life, just learning, experiencing, and then they learn to play with it. They can become princes and fairies and dragons, and they have an imagination and they play with thought and play with experience. And I don't think they just question it that much. It's just what we do. And then as adults, we think it's something different. But you use the word, do I play with it? And it's like, well, there isn't any rules. Like we can find times where people will talk about just feeling like they're in the flow. Other times it feels like we're like walking through treacle. It feels so hard. But it's just, it's all thought. There are no rules. We can live. And I think sometimes we want to, there's this sense of getting it right. Am I doing this life stuff right? Am I on the right path? But there isn't like this map in terms of what we should do. But I think the principles is a guide to just like the before stuff. Like there's this energy that creates and we can play. And it plays. But there isn't a right and wrong answer with it. It's not an either or.
No, you just look at that. It's hard, yet it's made of nothing. We're trying to find. We're trying to fit this into a concept. You know, it's hard. I could smash somebody over the head with that, and it really hurt them. I'd feel it. But according to physicists, it's made of nothing, and everything's made of nothing. Everything comes from nothing, comes from nowhere, and we're trying to put this into a yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad. No, this is totally inoperable in those kind of parameters. We must start to wake up to the wonder of life. Come like the child. It's that. I think it was Einstein said, only idiots are incapable of wonder. You know, we walk through life and we just see mundane. It's because we believe in mundane. Because we believe it's mundane, so therefore it appears as mundane. One of the things I've seen my sister do is she has woken up to the magic. She sees magic everywhere. She sees magic in the feather, in the bird, in the woodpecker trying to land on the seeds.
Magic everywhere. And if you really look at it, there's magic everywhere. The very existence of life itself is a magical, phenomenal event. You enter into the world of magic and wonder, you start to get closer to God. You start to get closer to your true essence. That's all it takes, is to drop what we think we know and to start to see the world afresh. There you start to enter the kingdom. Because you get closer to I do not know, you stop trying to put it all in a box and drive your own friggin' head mad with nonsense. I do not know is the truest state. I know is a complete and utter trap. Because at that point we stop listening. We stop exploring, we stop seeing magic. Because I know. Ash, did you have your hand up?
I did. Can you hear me? Okay. I did a while ago, and then I got really interested in what everybody was saying. I wanted to keep listening, but I was really struck by a few things that were said earlier, starting like with what Sasha was saying about understanding. One thing that's occurred to me this weekend is how much, like it just came to me, this realization of how much I experience life as a test, basically, like since I was little. I always remember this, and I always feel it, this sense of a test, that like basically you got to find out what needs improving in your life and improve it, and then you win getting to enjoy life when that's all finished, when you're improved. So I realized that, and I had this real sense of like letting go of that, like releasing that, and releasing that welcomed in a great fear into my heart, this terrible fear of letting that go and what that would mean, and feeling that fear of like, what happens if I don't have that, freaked me out a little bit. And I had learned a few days, like by yesterday, I had learned over the course of listening to all this that like, I just need to sit with that. And I just sat with that. I sat with it. And I could feel the wisdom bubbling up of kind of how to fold that information into my life in a way that felt good and that I could move forward with. And it was just a really cool understanding of how we're this source. Like I felt myself being a source of something that wasn't me, and just kind of letting myself get out of the way of it. It was a really powerful moment, really powerful understanding. It was really interesting too, that in the course of that process of realization, that I felt like that feeling of letting go of life being a test and having that make me afraid, like that feeling and that thought felt heavier than a lot of other stuff. I'd let a lot of other stuff go pretty easily, but that felt heavy in a way that felt meaningful. And then I thought, oh, but that's just a thought too. The thought that it's heavy and meaningful is just a thought too. And when I realized that, I sort of had that sense of sitting with myself and letting something come to me. And it was just a beautiful moment. It was really wonderful. And this weekend has been great. I've really come to this whole understanding over like, I don't know, half a year or so now. For a long time, I was really coming to it with like trying to have an intellectual understanding of it. I was really banging my head against the wall with that. And it really got to where I wasn't going anywhere. I was going backwards, I think. And then, fortunately, something about this wonderful weekend has really just made a difference for me. It's like this penny has dropped. It's been wonderful. And I've really moved past that need to intellectually understand it. And that's why I was saying that what Sasha said resonated with me about the understanding, because I totally get what she's saying about not really understanding it. But at the same time, like feeling it in my heart. So I just wanted to share that. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Ash.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for being here, love. It's so beautiful. Life's a test. What a trap. You see these things that, and I love the way you described it, as though somehow that belief was keeping you on track. No, if I let go of that belief, I'm going to derail. You see it. How much Sydney Banks would say there is zero peace found in beliefs. Any belief, because any belief we can be challenged upon, and we will experience suffering. We will justify it. We will argue. We will go to war over any beliefs. So you see, this isn't a belief. Buddha said the highest state any human can find themselves is a state of no thought, beliefless, present. Just being. And that bit that you kind of said was bubbling up within yourself, that wasn't you, that is you. Who else could it be? God? There's no separation. It's just the truest of us. That's us before concept. Us before name, us before identity. It's the truest of states. It's us without a label, us without judgment. That's what everybody and everything is. We just find out what we are. And when we find out what we are, we see we can't know it, but we are it, and we go out and live as human beings. We get to go and play, go mountain biking, go swimming, go walk along the beach, take a dog for a walk, make your magic potions like Cheryl. Get to sit in the car like Beju. Get to drink your cup of tea like Lisa. Get to rub your chin like Sasha. And that's what it's all about. It's nothing extraordinary, like Lisa keeps saying. It's this moment right now. This is it. This is the magnificence and beauty of life taking place right now. The mundane is the beauty. The everydayness is the magic. If we're here for a finite amount of time, as in this form, we worry about the future. And I'm glad we brought up mortality quite a number of times on this call, because I really feel like mortality is a really important thing for people to ponder. Is it break time?
It's way over.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Should we just have a quick break? So if we come back at 22,
yeah,
22:04 UK, so 10 minutes.